Some people might have a little rock and roll pneumonia.
You wanted the best, you got the best from my home studio on Long Island, New York. Welcome to Ian Scotto Rocks. I am your host, Ian Scotto, and as you may have seen, Judas Priest and Alice Cooper are hitting the road with Corrosion of Conformity opening for a full U.S. amphitheater tour. And put aside your feelings on Alice Cooper, Judas Priest, whether you're a mega fan, whether you feel they never got the respect that they're rightfully deserved. We're not talking about that today. We're talking about the fact that tickets are just not moving for these shows. With the exception of a few cities here and there, I was looking through Ticketmaster. I was just kind of curious, and it's very clear that they're biting off more than they can chew doing an amphitheater tour at this time. I think people may have thought, or the bands may have thought, staff may have felt, combining forces of these two groups, these two nostalgia legacy acts, they would be able to fill amphitheaters, and it's really just not the case. We'll get into why, but first I want to just demonstrate to you that this is not my opinion. This is not bashing these guys in any way. Judas Priest, legends, right? Alice Cooper, inspired so many other theatrical acts. But when you just look at Ticketmaster and you look at the grid, these tickets are not moving. So let's just get into it and give you what's going on here, right? So I'm looking through the dates here on Ticketmaster. Let's start here in Mississippi. That looks to be the first date of the tour, or at least the first date being sold on Ticketmaster. And look at this. Every single part of that floor is open. Now, here's the thing. When you zoom in, you'll see that it is just about every seat in a lot of places. I mean, look at these upper areas, right? As I scroll around here, it's a lot of it. All right. And then the mid-size and the floor, you can get pretty much any seat that you would possibly want for this tour is available. Now, you may be thinking, are they asking unreasonable prices? Is that the problem? No. As you can see here, the cheapest seats in the house, $35. You can't ask for less than that, right? And then let's see how the seats are, like, middle of the venue. How much you asking for that? As I click on one of these, $100, a little over 100. Not anything unreasonable. All right, let's go to the floor. Let's see if you're, over here in the middle of the floor near the soundboard. $100. Absolutely nothing crazy. Now, let's say you want to get the best seats in the house. You want to be front row, second row. $300 to be right on the stage. I mean, if you are a diehard fan, that would be worth it for a lot of you. Second row, $266. So, I mean, that's what some bands now are demanding for tickets way in the back. This is not anything unreasonable. And as you can see here, Mississippi, not moving. Let's move on to Georgia. Georgia, all right? Looks like everything has stuff available. Let's look at the actual legend. Yeah, anywhere you want to sit is available. Cheapest seats are starting at $52. Let's look at some really good seats here. How much are those as I zoom out here? All right, $206 for some really, really good seats, right? Let's look at the VIP, which I didn't on the last one. I don't even know what the VIP comes with. But yeah, $334, right up on the stage. These are reselling, so, I don't know if that would be a fair assessment of the value. But as you can see, the stuff going for standard price is nothing unreasonable, and it is not moving. I mean, if they were to play these shows that they're playing next month today, they'd be playing to a third full arena, maybe less. Maybe like a quarter of the arena would be there, or amphitheater, I should say. That is not good. I mean, I feel like these bands are going to lose money when they're playing places this big to these small of crowds. Let's look at Tennessee. And then after that, we'll look at Connecticut, which is the date that I noticed this on because I was thinking of going, which I'll get into. All right. You got cheapest seats in the house for $40. Every section is available. You got the same thing, and then you got this weird thing that Ticketmaster is doing where every other row is selling, and that might be because things aren't selling, or they may be doing something where they'll sell those seats later, but they may just be selling every other row here in the back because it's not moving. Tickets are just not moving. Let's look at Connecticut. That's the show closest to me. They're not doing a New York show. And I was thinking of going to this. However, it being a Tuesday and now me working a full-time job, I just don't know if I could swing it. But it would be very worth the price to me. And look at this. Everything is pretty much available. You know, you got tickets. Connecticut is a little bit more expensive. Yeah, you got tickets in the back starting at $60. But, like, what are some really good, really decent floor seats? All right, those are going for $173. That is a price which we'll get into as well. Let's see, way up front, second row, how much are those going for? All right, $440. Yeah, I'm definitely not paying that. But, you got seats up here, $320. Connecticut, you're going to demand a higher ticket price, but they're going to have to lower those, or on the resellers, they'll have to lower those because, as you can see, they are just not moving. So this is very reminiscent to me of a time that I saw Megadeth when they did Gigantor in, I believe, 2006 or 2007. If you look back, it's the one that Lamb of God was on, Arch Enemy was on. They played the Nassau Coliseum by me, and this was the beginning of my radio career. Opeth was on there. I actually remember I got to be on their tour bus and help conduct an interview with them. Really cool, but I had never seen Nassau Coliseum in Hempstead, New York, more empty in my life. I remember I would leave to get up to go to the bathroom, and it was a ghost town. You did not see anyone nearby. And this was always a problem with Dave Mustaine, I feel like, was, well, if Metallica is playing arenas, why can't I be playing arenas? It's just not big enough of a draw for them, especially during that time. And you may say, but Lamb of God was on there. Lamb of God was nowhere near as big when we're talking 2006, 2007. So the problem with this, I think, is that let's talk about both these bands. If you're an Alice Cooper fan, Alice Cooper has been touring consistently with some lineup of his band since the 70s, all right? So you have had decade after decade to see him tour live. I'm not really a huge Alice Cooper fan. I respect his legacy, but I saw Alice Cooper live opening for Motley Crue on their, Air Fingers quote, last tour. And most of the people were not there for Alice Cooper, but it was a great opening act to have. But I've seen him, right? And to me, do I need to see him again? Not really. And if you're someone who just has that on your bucket list, and you're old enough, you had the 70s to see him. You had the 80s. You had the 90s. If you're my age, you've had the 2000s, the 2010s, up until now. And this is not his last tour or anything. So a lot of people say, hey, I'll have another chance to see him. Judas Priest, you've got the same thing. Yes, you had that gap where Rob Halford was no longer in the band and you had Tim Ripper Owens. But that was over 20 years ago. So if you're a fan, they've consistently toured with somewhat of the classic lineup, because we know that's changed, but for 20 years now. And once again, for neither of these bands, it isn't their last tour, so there's no gimmick of this is the last time you could ever get to see them. But you never know. Both of these bands have members in their 70s. There's only so long you could tour, and this may be one of your last chances. But I don't think they should be playing amphitheaters, and it's not even my thought. Clearly, when you look at how tickets are moving, they should not be playing amphitheaters. To me, this is a bill, maybe at some point when Rob Halford came back to Judas Priest, they could be doing this. But we are many years removed from that. They should be playing, if you're here on Long Island, a place like the Paramount in Huntington. If you're in Philadelphia, a place like the Electric Factory, bigger sized clubs. That's what this show demands. It is not big enough to fill amphitheaters. And unless there was some gimmick going along with it, that it's the very last time you could see these guys, people feel, hey, I'll get a chance to see them next year or another time. And for our overseas viewers, I do know that when Judas Priest plays overseas, they are metal gods, and they could fill giant capacity venues. That is not the case in America, whether you think that's deserved or undeserved. And yeah, it's a fact that a band like Iron Maiden is still playing arenas. And you say, why the hell can't Judas Priest play arenas? I don't know. There may be many reasons for it, but the fact remains that they are just not drawing that type of a crowd. I want to know what you think. And I also want to point out there for like this audience, the people who watch these videos are by and large the diehards. They're people who may have seen Alice Cooper 10 times and still want to go see them. Same as for Judas Priest. The average rock fan may just know you've got another thing coming and Hellbent for Leather and all the hits, and they may have had a desire to see Judas Priest once, maybe twice, and after that, for the average fan, they don't have a desire to keep seeing them. And I don't think Judas Priest or Alice Cooper have really grown the fan base to a tremendous extent to like a Gen Z crowd who never got the opportunity that wants to see them live now. So more or less, you're playing to the diehards. And there aren't enough diehards in 2025 to fill up an amphitheater. Clearly, not a diss. This is just the case. I want to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. And I told you guys we'd keep things going here on Ian Scotto Rocks. Maybe not as often as I'd like with me working more right now. But I'm going to keep things going as I can and as things pique my interests like this did. Be sure to subscribe. Like the video, and check out the merch store. We've got great t-shirts, coffee mugs, and with that, keep it right here to Ian Scotto Rocks.